In this tutorial, I want to explain the importance of user experience, specifically user journey and success states. So let me just start with an example before I even go into user experience. Typically in websites, which is what I mainly provide tutorials on, we might have a contact form on a specific website. And you might be a designer, you might make everything look really good. So the user interface, everything's branded, everything follows design principles, which I'll be explaining in the future. For example, like hierarchy, font sizes, color schemes, all that stuff is looking very nice and sharp. But all of that is only one component to a good overall website. What also makes it really good, in combination of user interface, which is the aesthetics, is also the user experience. It has to make sense. So here's just a very obvious thing. Let's just say, for example, this is a really nice design contact form. Again, the user experience is really nice. But what happens if we just get rid of this send message? So we can actually just remove it from the canvas. Is this still a good user interface? Yes, it looks cool. But is it a good user experience? No. Why is it not a good user experience? It's because this is literally a contact form, but there's no obvious way of sending the message. Obviously, this is a very bizarre example, but I'm just showing you the importance of user experience. So in this specific case, it doesn't matter how good this might look, it's not really functional. So functionality is very important. The purpose is very important. And this specific purpose of a contact form is to send a message. In order to send the message, there's typically a button that says send message. But because I removed the button, it is terrible user experience and therefore it's almost obsolete, even though it looks really cool. So I can move that message back. And other small minor things in regards to user experience. For example, the designer who designed this, which is myself, for example, this box right here is to symbolize when the user clicks onto the box, it has an it's called a focus state. So it has a focus state of this orange border. So even that slightly is adding to the user experience. It's very subtle, this specific design, but it's showing the user that when you click onto this box is selected, and you know it's selected because it has this orange highlight. So very small minor things that people might even overlook. So typically in design or in user experience, it's the stuff that people don't even know. It's almost like you being a waiter. Like a good restaurant experience is when the waiter does his job, but it's unknown. But it's very obvious when the waiter doesn't do his job, it's very known. Exact same thing with design. Often when you look at good design or good user experience, you won't even notice because it's that good. But if it's a poor user experience or a poor design, you'll know straight away that something's off. Exact same thing, so very subtle. That is one example of user experience. And another example is user processes. So what happens when the user hits send message? Typically, in my experience, a lot of designers don't even think about this, or even developers, to be very honest. Even Webflow templates don't even think about this. So if I actually go into a Webflow template and you purchase one, and usually contact forms, when you hit send message, they don't even bother designing the success state, which is actually very important. So let's just say you have a really nice website, you have this contact form, they fill in the information, it's looking really beautiful, etc. You'll notice the default state, success state of a Webflow component is this gray box that just says message sent, something like this in a very default font, actually in your body font. So if I just move this here, literally it looks like something like this. And this is just such a shame, and this specific height is about, let's just say 40 pixels, but this is so sad, because what if you go into a really beautiful website, you fill in this really nice form, you hit send message, and then it just shows this really ugly default Webflow styling, which again is found in every single Webflow template, that just says your message has been successfully sent. That actually is bad user experience. Even these small again, it's all small details. This visual UI actually affects the entire branding. To me, it shows, and maybe I'm biased because I'm a designer, that wow, they didn't put the attention to detail to these small things, and this matters. Because if you think about it, if you look at this message sent right here, which is the default right here, but if I just simply brand it, maybe make this box the same height as this contact form, because right now, this height might be auto, so then the whole thing might shrink. Again, bad user experience, bad UI. But if I just brand this, for example, if I just put this background color here, maybe I'll put a border like here, like this. Then if I just put message sent right here, and then I change this to the color right here, right? This looks so much better. And then we can keep going, you know, what's the next user experience that we can do? We can literally start putting text. So for example, we might say message sent, and you know, this is just example. It would say something like, thank you for submitting your inquiry. You know, our team will get back to you within 1 to 2 business days. You know, if anything is urgent, please call us on, you know, 04888 something something something. So what if I do this instead? You know, and let's just disregard UI, like let's disregard the aesthetic, which is still important, right? Because everything needs to be like consistent, which I'll explain in future tutorials. But if I just do this, I'll put 32, line height 48, just make it something decent right here. You can see this is so much better than having a default success state that just says message sent or whatever it is in Webflow. This one's very custom. It's saying like message sent or, you know, success. And then it's telling you what the next step is, you know, so user don't have to think like, oh, did my message get sent? What happens now? Do I wait for the email? Yes, it's implied, but make it very obvious with good user experience. Make it obvious. There's no like questions, you know. This is literally saying, thank you for sending it. We have received it. Our team will review what you've sent in 1 to 2 business days. So now I know that I can expect something within 1 to 2 business days. And then it also says, you know, if there's anything urgent, and again, it really depends on, you know, what website you have in your business, but it says, is there anything urgent? Just call us right now on this number. There's a bit of spelling error here, but even spelling errors is, you know, affects the brand. So imagine if you go on like Nike website or like, you know, Apple website and you see a spelling mistake, you know, how does that reflect the brand? It just shows, wow, they really don't care about these small details. You know, Apple's meant to know for high quality products, you know, very nicely designed products, but they can't even spell something. So everything matters. Like everything comes back to branding, really, brand identity. And brand identity is so important because of essentially at the end of the day, you know, to sell your product and services, but everything matters. So that's what I'm trying to get you to think about in this tutorial is that we need to think more about just rather than doing like a static design, we need to think about, you know, where's the best place to put CTA buttons? What happens when the user hits this CTA button? Where do they go? How can we make it even, you know, even more better user experience? Like steps. The way I see it is steps. Let's take a look at another example. So typically, if you have a login functionality in your website, maybe using MemberStack or the native membership functionality in Webflow, you might have a thing where it says log into your account, and there's a thing that usually says reset password. So if you actually hit that, that takes you to a reset password page. What does that look like? What kind of messaging is in this? What kind of color scheme is it, you know? And right now, in this specific case, the user will enter their email in order to reset their password because they forgot it. What happens after this? What happens when they hit reset password? What happens? Does it redirect you to a different screen? Does it show like the success state that I just explained earlier in the contact form? In this case, it will display a success state that says, it should say something like, you know, your password has been resetted, and it says, if we found an account associated with that email address, we've sent you a link to reset your password. It clearly tells you what we've done. So now I know that I can expect the email with my password to be reset. And if I don't get an email, maybe it means that I don't have an account associated with this login functionality. So maybe I need to create a new account, you know? So it makes it very obvious. These type of things that I'm explaining is actually very obvious. Maybe it's like, oh, Derek, why are you saying this? This is pretty obvious, but these are the type of stuff we think about as a user experience designer. And what happens now? So now the user will go into their email and they'll get a, you know, hey, you've reset your password, click on this button or click on this link to create a new password. What does the email look like? What kind of messaging is the email? Is the email branded towards the brand, or does it look like a template? All this stuff matters. It counts to the experience. It counts toward the whole brand identity. You don't want a disjointed brand identity. It's not just about, you know, having a logo. It's not just about having a website. It's not about, you know, what text you write and how it sounds. What kind of spelling errors are there on your site? Like everything matters. Everything ties to this identity. And identity ties to that a good user experience. So it just, you don't want a disjointed experience. Because if you imagine this, you know, everything here was branded, you know, like with my, like for example, this is just an old example, like a logo and it's a gold colored theme. Imagine if you get an email and it's like red colored theme. Or imagine if the messaging is a bit weird. Like here it's very formal that says, if we found an account associated with the email address, we've sent a link to reset your password. And then you get the email, it's like, yo, did you reset your password? Yo, click on this link, yo, to, you know, like the language that you use needs to be all consistent. I hope this is making sense. And then once that's done, what happens next? You know, I didn't really bother to show the example, but maybe you'll go into a page where you also, you know, put your password and then hit reset password. And then when you hit reset password, what happens then? Does it show another success screen that says your password has been successfully reset, or does it just take you where you need to go, like the dashboard? So all this stuff you need to think about, and it really depends on, you know, each specific case. That's the thing about user experience. It depends on each specific case. And that's why, like, sometimes when you use templated website, it's not always the best to just use it, you know. Again, it depends on the client budget, but these are the type of stuff you need to think about. And I just thought I'd just put an example of just in general, like user experience, success state, and like customer flow. So, you know, we've all been to a restaurant. You know, I used to go to like restaurants, but sometimes restaurants are intimidating because they have poor user experience, in my opinion. Sometimes that's a good thing and it reflects the brand. For example, there's this meme where if you go to a Chinese restaurant and there's really no experience, like there's no service, there's no, you know, they don't tell you to sit down, they don't tell you where to go, etc. Like sometimes there's like a meme where it's like, that's how you know it's a good restaurant, because they're focusing on the food, they don't care about the user experience. But in general, especially if you're scaling a business, or if you have, you know, a big company that you want to put all around the world, you want to have a good user experience. Because let's be honest, you know, there's many restaurants in this world, and, you know, if you go there for the first time as a customer, it's hard to get, you know, something called client acquisition. But if you have that poor experience, you might leave a bad review. You might never go there again. You might not talk about it. But if you have a good user experience, and, you know, the customer, you know, the waiter was nice to you, so all this matters. The waiter was nice to you, you enjoyed the food, etc. You enjoyed the pricing, then you might leave a good review, and you might, you know, spread that business through word of mouth. That's an example of how user experience can affect a restaurant. And what I'm trying to say here is, like, all my tutorials and everything, my channel currently is focused on, you know, like websites and digital design, but, you know, really it goes beyond that. You can translate all this skill into like real life scenarios, like user experience design for products, user experience design for restaurants, you know what I mean? So the point here is sometimes I get frustrated, you know, when you go to a restaurant and then you go to the counter, and sometimes it's not very clear, especially if you travel overseas, it's not very clear what you're meant to do, like what the etiquette is. You know, for the people who've been to the restaurant many times, obviously they know, but for the first timers, you know, you don't want to exclude the first timers into your restaurant, because again, client acquisition, they might have a lifetime sale. Like, for example, if it's great user experience, I might keep coming back for the rest of my life. I might refer people to this restaurant, but you've isolated me because I don't know what to do. So it might be intimidating. So as I go inside the restaurant, for example, you know, am I greeted by a waiter? Does the waiter tell me to sit down? Does the waiter bring out the menu? Do I order through the waiter, or do I order through a QR code on my phone? You know, and then how do I pay? Do I ask the waiter to bring in the check, or do I go to the counter and pay? Sometimes you pay before even getting the food. Sometimes, you know, it's very weird. So like that, in my opinion, needs to be fixing. That's a weird user experience, you know? A good user experience, for example, will be everything's super clear. Usually you see this in high-end restaurants. So you go in, you go into the store, everything's branded nicely, and then there's like a really nice receptionist or lady that greets you, that says, hey. Sometimes they even call you by your name, you know, again, that has that association. And they say, hey, you know, how many people do you want? You know, and then they sit down, they even ask you, you know, is this an okay seat? Then you sit down there, then they give you the menu, and then they always check in on you, so they have good, you know, customer service, and they ask, what do you want to order? Like, everything's very clear. But sometimes you go to restaurants and it's not very clear, you know, and it's a bit, you know, weird. But again, you know, user experience costs money. It costs time and investment. I think it's worth the investment. But again, it really depends on, you know, what level you're on. And the exact same thing goes to website, because you can focus on all these experiences, but at the end of the day, is the client paying you this much money to do this, or do they even care? That's another thing you need to think about. But finally, I just want to put a last example. Is there's a place in the Philippines called SM, which is a massive company that pretty much owns Philippines, let's be honest. But they own like a shopping center, and the shopping centers in Asia are really big. They own the cinema in the shopping center. They own an ice skating rink. And what I really want to explain, again, I didn't pull all these images from Google, is how good the user experience is, in my opinion. So I like to think ice skating is a very cool thing to do. I'm sure we've all heard of it one time in our life. Maybe, you know, if you're watching this, you've been ice skating, or maybe you haven't been ice skating. And why haven't you been ice skating? You know, there could be many reasons, like there is no ice skating rink nearby. But I think one of the reasons is it might be a bit intimidating. So there's an education barrier to go into ice skating. You know, there's an intimidation factor that goes into ice skating. But what SM has done, in my opinion, really well is not only their branding and their user experience, user interface, their design, but they put attention to user experience. And what I mean by this is they don't even isolate beginners. In fact, they target it towards beginners because I think they know that in order to get that client acquisition, to get lifetime skaters, you need to have really good user experience, especially at the start. And you need to actually educate beginner skater because it's very, you know, intimidating to go in. So what they actually have is that they have a massive sign that obviously shows the price. This is just a small example because I can't pull the actual image, but on the screen, it's very obvious. Like, this costs 300 pesos. You know, what does this 300 pesos include? It includes, you know, the skate hire. It includes unlimited all-day pass, or this includes, you know, a session between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. So it's very, very obvious how much the price is and what it includes and what time it's held. Then it also has add-ons, you know, so it acknowledges the fact that, you know, you might be a beginner skater and you want to learn how to skate because it's very intimidating, you know, and usually you won't go there by yourself. You usually go with friends or someone who knows how to skate so they can teach you. But this is literally says you can literally hire a coach for 30 minutes for an additional 150 pesos. So it's bridging that gap, that barrier from beginner to he is a coach that you can hire to hold your hand. You know, what other stuff can you hire? You can also hire that thing where you like push like a seal around, or the thing where you lie down and someone pushes you. You can also hire that. That also caters to beginners. But that's it. And then the next thing is, the great thing I think about this is they have such good user experience, and I can't really show you through these pictures, but they literally have steps. It's so obvious. It says like, step 1, order your ticket. Like, it clearly says step 1. And then step 2, buy your ticket. So then you go to a ticket booth. And not only do they have like step 1, you know, think about what product you want. Step 2, buy the tickets here. It's all in sequential order. So it's obviously not like step 1 is place here, then step 5 is here, then step 3, and then step 2. It's like step 1, step 2, step 3. And they force you to walk through step 1, step 2. So you cannot, there is no misconstruing. There's no like, where do I go? Like, it's very obvious. So again, literally clear signs that say step 2, purchase your tickets right here. Then you talk to the person, and the person they hire, very friendly, you know, they're very welcoming and warmth and stuff. And this all adds to the user experience, in my opinion. And then once you buy the ticket, let's just say you buy a $300 ticket for a 2-hour session, then it's very clear that you head over to step 3. Like, it literally says step 3. Step 3, measure your shoes. And then like maybe a text below that saying you need to measure your shoes in order to get the right ice skating thing. And then, you know, make sure you pick a size that is tight or something. And then you literally put your foot in the foot measure. And there's even a person there that, like, you know, checks it for better experience. So imagine if there is no person there, you know, you might just do it yourself. And if it's your first time, you might be very confused about like, where do I put my foot? What do I say, etc. Like, there's a person there literally making sure that you're doing everything correct. So there is no misconstruing. So again, let's say you measure your shoe, you might be, you know, US 9.5. Then step 4, again, so after step 3, there's step 4, where there's ice skating, like people with the shoes that say, hey, okay, what did you measure? Oh, 9.5. Then they give you a boot with 9.5. And then step 5, you know, let's sit here and then put your ice skating boots on. And then, you know, optionally, if you hide a locker, this is how you use the locker. In fact, often they have people like hanging around the locker to make sure that everything's okay. That's always great to have someone there to make sure that the step is being fulfilled. And then obviously you enjoy your skating experience. If you hire a coach, even better. But look how great the experience is. There's no like, what do I do? You know, because let's look at a poor user experience. Like, maybe a poor user experience is there is no steps that's clearly labeled. There is no person serving you. So it's very intimidating if you go here, you know, as a beginner, and you might never want to go ice skating. And because SM is very, very big in the Philippines, as I said, they don't just own the skating rink, they also own the cinema, they own literally the whole mall, they own like banks. Like, it's very important for them to have good user experience. So imagine if I go into SM skating, I'm like, wow, this is really cool, right? I'm like, SM skating is really cool. Then in my brain, I'm associating SM is really cool in general. They also own a supermarket. So you're like, maybe I'll check out their supermarket, you know? It just adds to everything, like everything. So anyways, I just thought that was very interesting. I hope this really explains user experience. And I just want to explain even further. It goes beyond this. So it even goes beyond before skating, before even going to the ice skating. How did the person even find out about this ice skating place? Was it word of mouth? Was it that they also, you know, went to like other SM places, like I mentioned, like a cinema, and maybe they had a great user experience in the cinema, so they're like, maybe, oh, they also do skating, maybe I'll try it out because I have a good association with the company SM, you know? Or maybe before that, there's advertising. They've already, you know, pre-programmed this in your brain. Maybe they purchased Instagram advertisement. Maybe you've been like riding around the city and you see billboards of SM in general. So it starts before you even go into here. This goes really into detail, but I just want to explain it to you. And let's say, like, for example, after you finish your ice skating, what happens after that? It doesn't end there, you know? Like, for example, once you buy an iPhone, it doesn't end there, you know? It keeps going, you know? What happens after the user has finished ice skating? They have a good experience, you know? Do you ask them to leave a good review on Google? Do you ask them to do a video testimonial, you know? Did you collect their email address at the start? And then are you going to send them an EDM campaign following up saying, hey, thank you so much for coming. You know, please come again. Here's 15% off for your next visit. Stuff like that. Or, you know, all this is user experience. All of this. So user experience process. At least this is how I see it. So I hope that made sense. I hope this video had some value. I think the ultimate takeaway is to just think about the customer and what they want. And think about how you can make it easy for them to purchase your product or services, and think about, you know, what happens before they purchase your product or services. How they even reach you in the first place, and then after they purchase your product and services, how can you keep them on? How can you keep that good user experience? And yeah, and again, like that's just a real life example. I think everything can be applied through, you know, real life examples, but in this tutorial I've been teaching, you know, websites mainly. Same thing with websites, excuse me, you know, like contact forms, like we all know what that is, you know. Success state, why is no one designing this? Think about that. What happens when you hit a success state? Can you innovate? Instead of having this box, can it redirect you to a different page, or maybe with a video of yourself saying, oh, thank you so much for submitting the form, you know, I'll personally come back to you within 1 to 2 business days. Something like that. No one's ever done that before, you know. And the small details like hover states, you know, focus states. And then just another example, just so everyone can relate, you know, when someone resets a password, what happens when they hit that button? What happens next? What does it look like? What kind of messaging? What kind of branding, etc.? Another screen, and then the email, and then another step to change a password. So that's like 5 steps in order to reset your password. And then you think to yourself, you know, is there an easier way? Can I just make it 2 steps instead of 5 steps? You know, so it all adds. I know this video's been long, but I hope it helped, and I hope you found value, and I'll see you in the next